Time is a fiction we invented. It enables us to make sense of our fleeting existence. We measure our lives in days, decades, generations. But out here, Mother Nature doesn't keep a calendar. She keeps a ledger, and she writes it in stone. To understand the Big Bend, to truly see it, you must first surrender your ego. You have to stand in the searing silence of a landscape that doesn't know you exist, and realize that right where you're standing, you are treading upon the floor of a sea that vanished an eon ago.
The Big Bend, 100 million years ago till about 75 million years ago, was an inland sea. So we've got a lot of limestone that has a lot of marine life fossils in it. So a lot of clamshells is very common to find down here, old fossilized clamshells.
Words do not do credit to the Big Bend. Every hour of the day, every day of the year, the light is slightly different, changes here and there. Buzz Aldrin, when he was talking about the moon, said, "Yep, magnificent desolation." I've always thought that's what Big Bend is. It's magnificent desolation.
This is more than a beautiful landscape. It is the hallowed ground of a geological civil war, a chaotic masterpiece forged by water, fire, and a violence so profound the human mind can barely grasp the scale of it. Long before the Comanche, the outlaws, or the desperate reach of man, this land was at war with itself. If you want to understand how the Chihuahuan Desert anchors this fortress, you have to look at the foundation. For nearly 80 million years, this corner of Texas was lost to the ancient brine of a shallow sea. This was an era of slow chemical accumulation, where salt, shell, and time were compressed into the very limestone we see today. But the Earth's crust is never quiet. Beneath those waves, tectonic plates were locked in a slow-motion collision. North America grinding against the floor of the Pacific.
Well, as a lot of geologists that I've spoken to have told me, it's complicated. Probably one of the main issues that shape what we see is the fact that this area was underwater for a long time. And then the sea gradually receded. And this was due to tectonic forces where one of the Pacific Ocean tectonic plates contacted the North American tectonic plate. The Farallon plate, as a matter of fact, is what they call it. And gradually this pressure between the two plates compressed North America and gradually had it started rising. This was called kind of the mid-continent Cretaceous Seaway.
As the oceans drained, the pressure didn't subside. It intensified into a boil. The Earth's surface fractured, and the deep fires of the mantle rose to take their place. Magma ripped through the limestone, drowning the landscape not in water, but in liquid fire.
The Chisos Mountains in the far background here, though, are tertiary age igneous formations that date back 30 to 40 million years ago. The High Chisos, the South Rim, the Casa Grande Peak, Lost Mine, those are lava flows that were out on the surface that were volcanic in origin, where the lava spread out across the surface. There's also another type of formation here that's called a laccolith, and it's where that molten material came up, hit a weak spot, and began to spread out, but there wasn't enough overlying material, overburden, to hold it down, and so it actually, that igneous rock, as it spread up, domed up the overlying beds, and it formed this molten lava deposit that then solidified, and it looks like a mushroom-shaped top, has a flat bottom, mushroom-shaped top. They're not real common around the world, but they're very common here in the Chisos.
These weren't typical volcanoes. They were laccoliths, giant subterranean bubbles of magma that forced the Earth's crust to dome upward, like a blister. At Maverick Mountain, we see the massive, unyielding scale of that pressure. But at Willow Mountain, the mask has been stripped away, revealing the rhyolite columns, the literal bones of the Earth, frozen in the act of cooling.
This is Maverick Mountain, and it was Maverick Volcano when it was active, and it's a huge, huge volcano. All we're seeing, because of the millions of years of erosion, is the chamber. So that's the magma chamber that produced a lot of other effects around here. So while Maverick was an erupting volcano, Indian Head, which is right in front of us, and Willow Mountain, which I live right at the base of that, Willow Mountain, those are extrusions where it came straight up out of the ground and cooled.
And then the volcanic activity died off and now kind of left us with this very arid climate, this very dry desert climate.
The fires of the mantle finally went cold, leaving a jagged, unfinished world. The bones were forged, but the Big Bend was still a block of raw stone, waiting for the first drop of water to begin a 2 million year surgery. There are no shortcuts in the Big Bend, and there are no shortcuts in the kind of storytelling we're trying to build here at WildYetiTV. We are 100% independent, self-funded, and fueled by the belief that great storytelling still matters. We don't answer to a network, we answer to you. So if you believe in what we're building, help us keep this thing going. Hit the subscribe button, like the video, and do us the biggest favor of all. With each of our episodes, ride with us all the way until the credits roll. The journey is always worth it. With the fire extinguished, the land was handed over to its final architect, time. And time's favorite tool is erosion. For 2 million years, the Rio Grande acted as a slow-motion scalpel, slicing through the limestone barrier to carve out the monolithic cathedrals we now call Santa Elena, Boquillas, and Closed Canyon.
Roughly in the last 1 million or 2 years, the erosional activities in this new river essentially made its way to the ocean, and these canyons here in Big Bend and these mountain ranges were the last barrier. Even though the rock, like if you go to Santa Elena Canyon, some of the oldest rock you see in the park is 125 million years at the base of the cliff. The canyon itself was maybe only like 1.5 million years old.
While the limestone of Santa Elena surrendered to the river with a vertical, cathedral-like precision, further west, the Rio Grande met a far more stubborn opponent. Colorado Canyon wasn't carved through soft sea brine deposits. It was cut through the hardened, jagged armor of volcanic rhyolite. It is a darker, grittier record of the water's refusal to be turned back. Whether volcanic ash or ancient seabed, the river didn't discriminate. It carved a gallery of monuments across the entire frontier. But if the Rio Grande is a master of violence, it is also a master of aesthetics. And for many, the most profound work of art remains the vertical silence where the water meets the mouth of Mesa de Anguilla.
One of the turning points was an article in Southern Living. Southern Living came down and did an article on the rafting industry, and their cover photo was a picture of Santa Elena Canyon. And the quote was, "If light were sound, Santa Elena Canyon would be a symphony."
But out here, time is not always a composer. Sometimes it is a scavenger. Along the banks of the Rio Grande, we see the results of this surgical erosion. The HooDoos, fragile towers of ash, capped by hard stone, standing as temporary monuments to a river that refuses to stop biting at the heels of the mountains. In most parts of the world, the earth hides her scars beneath soil and forests. But the Big Bend is naked. It is a land completely unashamed of its own brutality. You don't just see the mountains here, you see the faults, the breaks, and the raw skeleton of the planet.
I have a lot of friends that live in, Colorado or California or someplace where they have real mountains. And even they say the mountains in Big Bend are just so much more incredible. What they're talking about is when you look at a mountain in Big Bend, it's not covered with trees. You can see the mountain, you can see the rock, you can see the faults in the rock. And if you're up in Colorado, you don't see anything except a bunch of snow. So I think one of the things that is really special about Big Bend is you've got these pristine examples of mountains that are not covered with anything. They're just right there to see.
There is an unflinching honesty in a land that refuses to cover its wounds. The Big Bend offers no shade from the sun, and no mask of green to soften the jagged truth of its past. For an age, this raw skeleton of the planet stood in absolute, unblinking silence. But the silence wasn't permanent. In a momentary flicker from across the horizon, a new visitor arrived. A visitor who brought a fragile heartbeat to the desolation. For tens of millions of years, this unyielding architecture stood empty, collecting dust, hardening its heart. And then, in the final fleeting seconds of the cosmic clock, man arrived, fragile, arrogant, and desperate to survive. The first people didn't try to conquer this geology. They submitted to it.
I was going to show you that rock. We need to look at that. It's a rock of mortars. So you had all of these Indians here, and that's like the kitchen table there or whatever where they're preparing the food. Yeah, it is pretty. It's amazing. So every inch of a mortar in depth is 100 years of civilization. So they were here for a long time.
A lot of native tribes passed through the area. Most of the other people that passed through would come through to get different foods, maybe some game, maybe chert, which is a type of rock that there's an abundance of down here. Chert has a really high silica content, so when it breaks very sharp and it makes really good tools.
The stones provided the weapons. The caves provided shelter. But deep within the limestone lay a secret that would eventually draw a new kind of man who didn't want to live with the land, but rather to bleed it.
Well, the mining operation here was driven by the geology of the area. Basically, in the Terlingua mining district, it is all Cretaceous age limestone. The limestone, some of the formations in the limestone formations have karst topography. They have caves that have solution caves that have eroded out deep down in the ground that over millions of years were filled in by the mineral deposits that miners were going in and extracting.
The Cinnabar that they made the Mercury from, that's what they used in the beginning for like Indian war paint. And they would trade that to the other Indians.
The miners rattled the canyons with the sound of steel and the smell of sulfur, convinced their industry was permanent. But for every tunnel we dug and every fire we lit, the geology remained unimpressed. The earth was merely enduring an interruption, a brief, noisy fever that the stone would eventually forget. From ancient hunters grinding seeds into a stone table, to desperate miners pulling toxic red rock out of the dark, we are all just brief occupants of this space. We look at these mountains and we see resources. We see adventure. We see an escape. But the Big Bend, it sees us as just another shadow passing through.
There's no doubt that a stone, any stone, is going to last longer than any human being. And if they've got a story to tell, that story is going to be told for much, much longer than any wise man could sit out there and say, here's what's happening. So when I see a petroglyph, I just stare at it. I don't even think about interpreting it. I'll just look at it and see if it can talk to me.
We spend our lives trying to leave a mark, a carving in the rock, a tunnel in the earth, a name on a map. We want the land to remember us, but the stone is indifferent to our presence. It doesn't remember. It only endures.
There's a part of the local ethos that wants everything to stay empty and magnificent forever. And I can't say much about the empty part because we're getting more people all the time, but the magnificent part never changes. It never changes. I would like to put up a billboard, maybe on the highway south of Marathon or south of Alpine, that would say, attention, magnificence ahead, slow down and dig it.
Maybe that is the only truth the desert offers. To slow down long enough to hear the silence. To realize that our presence here is nothing more than a heartbeat in the ears of the mountain. The oceans have dried. The volcanoes now sleep. But the bones of the earth remain, and they will be here long after the last shadow has disappeared back into the horizon.